Hi, good afternoon. Happy to be here. And we are, as Jim mentioned, kicking off the K-12 section by talking about high schools. And as you know, high school is a pivotal time in an individual's life, in a student's life. It's where opportunity starts crystallizing, where identity starts crystallizing, where civic awareness starts growing and crystallizing. And we're going to talk about how high school can accelerate the change that is needed so that we can meet this moment in a way that hasn't happened before. I'm so happy to be joined by Russlynn Ali, who is a great close collaborator and dear friend, and we very rarely get to actually speak in public, so this is a rare treat for me. And before we begin the conversation, we have a short video that was prepared many years ago, Russlynn. I don't know how many years ago, probably 10 years ago, but it still holds true, as you'll see. And then we'll kickstart the conversation. So first, we'll run the video, I assume on all the screens around here.
This is America in 1900. This is a car in 1900, and a phone, and a high school. This is America in 1950, and a car, and a phone, and a high school. This is today, a car, a phone, a high school. Whoa, back up. So cars are now this. And phones are now this, but high schools are still that? American high schools are based on the same model, and it's been over 100 years. But why? In 1900, it made sense for high schools to prepare students for that. But now, shouldn't they be preparing students for this, and even this? So why are we still granting diplomas based on the time a student spends in a seat? Why are we still using the Carnegie Unit, which was developed in 1906 and says the formula for learning is 4 years sitting at a desk multiplied by one subject taught at a time equals students ready for the future? All questions XQ Institute asked America to help answer. There was a competition, not that kind of competition, this kind. The kind where communities across the country come together to rethink high school so every student, everywhere, can be prepared for the future. And that's big, like really big. Like the largest open call in history to redesign high school big. This is the hard work that went into it. 10,000 people across the country became school builders. And thanks to them, there are brand new ways of teaching and learning. Starting with America's first super schools. Schools that let students learn by doing, that focus on the future and spark curiosity. Schools that build community, unleash potential, and solve real-world problems. That ask their students what they think and actually listen to them.
All right. So as you can see, we made this film 10 years ago, which launched a national call at the community level to redesign high schools. And Russlynn can walk us through who answered that call, but I'll tell you, communities, leaders in all 50 states came forward with a blueprint for the new high school that they wanted in their communities, repurposing the assets of their communities, mapping onto the workforce demands of their local communities. And so we'll give you an update of how that's gone, what we learned from it, what's next, because we're 10 years in on this journey. But first, Russlynn, I think it's really important to level set for everyone here. How are we doing in the United States at high school? We have the latest NAEP results out, which, spoiler alert, are devastating. And I want you to just give us the lay of the land there, and then we'll talk about XQ schools and the next phase of this really important work.
Well, thank you. And as you said, devastating. We have the lowest performance levels of our young people in high school than has ever been recorded in the history of NAEP.
What does that mean? What is the history of NAEP? Is it 50 years
Yep,
in?
about
40
there.
years in?
Yep.
So the lowest levels in literacy and
Things that were
mathematics.
pre-NAEP, but yes, lowest level ever recorded. And so, and here's what it means in both subjects, but young people can't, the majority of young people in our country cannot calculate the tax on a split bill in a restaurant. They cannot.
So decibels.
Decimals to fractions, fractions to decimals. These are things that are hugely important actually as students enter into high school mathematics.
And so is this 8th grade or 12th grade?
These are 12th grade.
Okay.
These are 12th
Just so
grade.
everyone knows.
Yes. These are young people that are in the workforce today. They graduated last year.
Uh-huh.
The majority can't articulate the argument in an opinion piece. Mm-hmm. So as we're asking young people to be masters of fundamental literacies, to be able to discern truth, these things that we call durable skills and competencies, as well as obviously the academic knowledge that the standards movement has been brought to bear, and we are seeing results across the country with that, right? We now know what students should know and be able to do at every grade level. But layered on top of that are these things we used to call soft skills that aren't so soft. Things like collaboration, adaptability, critical thinking. So the XQ schools started with this notion of what would it take to ensure that young people were ready for the demands of their local economy.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that bear out in place after place. Red state, blue state, urban, rural.
And so give us an example of a few of, so the picture is bleak right now at a national level.
Yes.
I think it's about a third of 12th graders are proficient in literacy measurements, and about a quarter are proficient in mathematics as measured by NAEP.
Yes.
And you're talking about the fact that that's only the foundational skills. That doesn't even include the skills that we know are 21st century skills, and things are moving faster than ever. So when we look at the schools that were formed as a result of the XQ competition a decade ago, talk to us about a few of the schools that you think really, really met the moment and pushed the envelope, and where are they located, and what are they doing?
Okay, it's really hard to choose just a few.
I'm sorry, but you're going to have to.
I know, okay. Purdue Polytechnic, that single-handedly in its first year of graduating students ensured more students of color went into Purdue Polytechnic University, and now have since graduated, because we can see that pipeline than ever before from Indianapolis. That is a place where, when you think about project-based learning, or how you embed these competencies, or work-based learning, or all of the ways that we know the science of adolescent learning requires instruction to meet the moment. We know now, and I recall as we're looking at...
Sorry, that was a collaboration between Purdue University and the high school that was started.
Yes, that is now replicating across the state and is a hub for learning of teachers across the state. It was a partnership with community and the former governor, who had then been Mitch Daniels, who had then been the president of Purdue Polytechnic University. And so the pathway that these young people embarked on when they went to Purdue ensured that when they graduated, they would not only be qualified to attend Purdue Polytechnic.
Purdue University.
Yes, I'm sorry, Purdue University. But they would do it from a science base, They would do it from an engineering base. They would do it ready for the demands of
And
this
did
new
they
world.
integrate college level courses earlier in the high school curriculum?
Many did, and that now that is taking to scale. In fact, Purdue Polytechnic is replicating and is now thinking about micro schools throughout the entire state, so that those pathways become real, where students are in fact earning college credit should they choose to go in that direction. But regardless, they can fulfill their dreams when they leave our high school doors.
And that high school replicated that model several times in Indianapolis
Yes.
alone?
Well, it's actually expanding throughout the state.
And now you said
Yes.
that, okay.
Yes. So
And
initially,
how many schools will they have?
well, this is where the micro school piece comes in, because their plan was 10. They are at 3. They will get to 7 very shortly. But they themselves are really rethinking what they mean by expansion to help bring this work to scale.
Yeah, scale it faster.
We are seeing the same, let's pick a rural place, Elizabethton, Tennessee, where those young people are graduating 3 deciles above their peers across the region, where now the idea of one teacher with one group of students in one class has spread not just through the school, but into the district, and now creating an Appalachian network of educators to learn how to take these models to scale. All that to say, there is a will, there is a hunger. When we launched XQ, 50,000 people signed up to be a part of this. As Laurene mentioned, 10,000 went all the way through what became a 7-month, very rigorous designer of learning process. You can't invent that kind of authentic hope and faith.
No, and clearly everyone sees this as a pain point and a need, and the local communities wanted to step up to the need. So now we'll fast forward beyond the exemplar individual schools to talk about district level change,
Yep.
state level change. So how is that progressed to districts? I know we had DC.
Yep.
And a couple of states that wanted to take this on, and then we'll talk about where we are today.
Yes, in New York City, where they're doing future ready and our competencies, those things of durable skills, with 37 what students need to know and be able to do in real life, a framework that has actually been declared best in the world by Harvard. So now, all of the future-ready schools that are being built in New York City from ground up are embedding these kinds of skills and work in it. Rhode Island has looked at all 64 of their high schools and are transforming them simultaneously with a partnership at the state level that now has an office for secondary education that is providing the support that schools need to change big time. DC has always been a model for innovation in some ways. I'm sure this audience knows, they are about half charter and half traditional public schools. So the work of transforming the 21 of those high schools, actually now 22 because a new one was open, Ron Brown, into schools of the future designed by community. So redesign is equally as important as finding those insights and lessons from new schools. But this is how we scale it.
Yeah, but we're talking about full-scale system change. And so that touches everything from curriculum changes, credentialing changes, measurement changes, how to transition the teaching workforce, and do professional development and retraining. And so obviously this has to happen at the district level and the state level. So how are those partnerships coming along?
Well, recently we released a 50-plus DC state report that analyzes every state's progress towards modernizing high schools in all of the ways that Laurene described and more. We co-released that with 12 states as many Republican states as Democrat states. 25 have really agreed to partner in this journey. Now, no state, it's not a ranking, but it is an analysis of the 10 most important levers that will ensure high schools become the engine of state economies. No state has reached all of them.
So these 10 levers, are these 10 policies that have to happen at the state level?
They are.
What are some examples of the policies?
So ensuring that this idea of a time-based system that you saw in the video, where we really are measuring learning by how long young people sit in a school, replacing that with this notion of mastery. We now know how to measure what students know and are able to do.
Yeah, so we don't have to use time as a proxy for learning.
That's right.
We can actually measure whether that fundamental knowledge has been mastered.
That's right. And assessments that meet the moment. Ways that no state is really there on this. Lots of states are at partial, but none are there where we have developed assessments that bring technology to bear to a policy vision that knows we need to be able to adapt to student learning in real time. We're starting to see some progress on that. The idea of transcripts, they still look the same as many of us graduated decades ago. Knowing that those transcripts actually need to be a digital passport to learning. So the policy report looks at what is the ecosystem that needs to happen at the state level. How do we power teachers inside the classroom to do the kind of innovation that so many are hungry for, but the system itself stultifies it? How we think about looking at data in a way that drives continuous improvement. This is not about sanctions. This is about knowing what happens to our young people and being able to react in real time. So the report looks at factors that give rise to innovation now.
And so when you say 50 states plus DC, each state has been given a report of where they are on these policy guidelines using learnings from the XQ schools that already exist, but also contextualizing it to each state's learning environment. So there's a pivot from any type of federal oversight or umbrella to pivoting to the state as the unit by which all of this change happens. So which states are really the most engaged around this?
So Indiana, for example, that has not just a kind of leadership at the gubernatorial level to do this work and support it, but a state chief that is remarkable, that has spanned administrations. In fact, what used to be a K-12 job in Indiana is now a K-16 job for the state chief. One of the other ways we think about the policy actions, what is the intersectionality across the systems that make young people learn?
Yeah, so you need the governor, probably the legislative leads, the state chief, and I'm sure a lot of superintendents at the leading districts.
100%, even down to the school level. The other day we were there, XQ was formed by listening and learning across the country, and we're doing that again. And there was a superintendent of a charter network and traditional public school district who described himself not only as a superintendent, but a school leader and founder. And talked about the way these policy actions, from knowing how to credentialize learning and stackable badges, to ensuring that on top of academic knowledge, we've layered those durable skills, to the kind of supports that schools need and districts need. This is a partnership across the segments.
Yeah, it's got to be so hard we know system change is really difficult. That's why it's taken a long time to make any meaningful change in this way, but really hard to build that bridge between practice and implementation on the ground and state policy. So I know that that's what XQ is
Yes.
working on a lot. So after Indiana, what are the other states that you intend to visit personally this year?
In this first, we're hitting the 12 that have partnered with us. So it's Ohio, Michigan, North Dakota, places that are really willing to go deep and dig in. So we are crisscrossing the country on this go round, and we'll double down on the next. In the South, in the North, East, and West. It really is a movement for all of us and these governors and state chiefs that are standing up to do this work for every single kid in every single community in their states are models that we are not only hungry to learn from, but to stand shoulder to shoulder with as they
It's
scale.
enormously encouraging. Thank you. I know we're out of time, but thank you so much, Russlynn. It was exciting to hear.
Thank you.